pandemic. I think I got bad flu.
Okay, so Pandemic is a game where we're going to be trying to save the world from 4 separate diseases and trying to prevent a pandemic from taking over the world. Okay, so when you do eventually cure a disease, so the end game is to cure all 4 diseases, and when you cure a disease, you just move these little markers down here. There will be an option to eradicate a disease as well. I'll explain that in a little bit, but basically when you eradicate it, you bring it over to this side. You might notice a little token over here that gives you the purple disease, but that is an expansion we're not going to play with today. Okay, so during your turn you can do various many actions. You have to do 4 actions in total before you can pass over to the next player. The first action you can do is a drive or a ferry move, which basically means you can take your pawn and you can move it 1 space for 1 action. You can also do a direct flight, which means that if you have a card, for instance, if you had Lima, what you can do is actually spend that card by putting it in a discard pile and actually going to Lima itself. So you can't use that card. However, you've been able to jump across the board in one go, which is quite cool. If you happen to be in Lima, you can take that exact same card, discard it, but from Lima you can now go to any other place on the board, so quite a powerful move. After that, we also have the shuttle flight. So at the moment we can see we have 2 of these research centers on the board. At the end of the day, you normally start with 1 of them, but we have 1 here just for the purposes. You can go between these research stations for 1 action. Let's say that we have, again, the Lima card. You can also build a research station. So let's say this pawn has gone all the way down to Lima. You can spend that Lima card. You can take a research station token, put it in Lima, and this now activates a new place that you can go for a shuttle flight. So during the game, you're going to be picking up various cards. You'll see that when we play through, but essentially to cure a disease, you need 5 color cards of the same color to then discard once you're at a research station. You discard those colors and you have now officially cured that disease. When you're on a space that has these cubes, for 1 action you can also take 1 of these cubes away. So for 2 actions in this case, I can actually take away 2 cubes from Sao Paulo, meaning that you're taking a little bit of a problem out there. Okay, so when a player finds themselves on a space that actually has cubes, you can actually remove the cubes which are representative of the disease, and you can actually treat disease for 1 action. So here, for example, I could treat for 2 actions and put the cubes back into their bottle. And last but not least, for an action, let's say that 2 of our players were in Lima, for example. You can actually share or trade knowledge here. So let's say that the white player here had the Lima card. That white player could, for an action, give the orange player a card, or let's say the orange player was there, but the white player still had the card. The orange player could take that card from that player. Okay, so once a player's done 4 actions, we go to the second phase here, which is draw 2 cards. In this case, we've got the Tokyo card and we have the Mexico City card. That will go into your hand. You have a hand limit of 7 cards. If you happen to be over 7 cards at this point, you have to discard down to 7. Once you've done that stage, you go into the Infect Cities. Over here, you'll see the infection marker is at 2 currently. So with that 2, that means you have to take 2 cards from the top. In this case, we have Ho Chi Minh, which means we have to put an infection cube down on Ho Chi Minh, which is here. And the next one would be Washington. So we take a blue color, which matches exactly the same color of the city, and we put a cube there too. Okay, so in that draw phase, if we were to draw an epidemic card, bad times. First of all, you're going to increase the infect rate. So this goes to the next pile, and this essentially tells you how many of the cities you then have to draw from the infect pile. In this case, what you then have to do next, because of the epidemic card, is draw the very bottom card. In this case, it's Buenos Aires. That card, whatever it is, needs to then have 3 cubes that come down onto that city. This then goes into the discard pile, and we now have to draw the 2 that we already have told us we need to draw. So in this case, we have Milan. Now, Milan already has 3 cubes on it. Normally, if it is just empty, or if it didn't have 3 on it, you would just put an extra cube on it. Because it's got 3, you can only go up to 3, and then it outbreaks. An outbreak basically means that you then put a cube of the same color on every city that is now touching, and you move the outbreak marker down another space. If the marker goes all the way down to the bottom, you lose. Now, let's say that it outbreaked to another group of 3. You would then get this one to outbreak also, which means in this case we have Istanbul outbreaking. That'll then go to Algiers, Cairo, Baghdad, Moscow, and St. Petersburg. And because Milan has already outbreaked in this turn, you don't outbreak that city again. So if at any time you run out of cubes to place on the board, you lose the game. If at any point, as we previously mentioned, you have 8 outbreaks, you also lose the game. Also, if there's nothing to draw from the player deck, you immediately lose the game. You must cure all 4 diseases by the end of this, or you don't win. It's also worth mentioning that you only need to cure all 4 diseases to win the game. You don't need to eradicate a disease. Eradication basically means you've cured all the diseases and you can take all of these off the board to eradicate the disease. Now, if you were to now bring out an infection card, it doesn't come out on the board because you've gotten rid of the disease. Also worth mentioning is that let's say you had 3 cubes on the board. When you treat a disease, you now take every single one of those cubes away, not just one for an action. Okay, you've also got your roll cards as well. You actually take these at random at the beginning of the game. However, if you were to read through all of the individual abilities, you would then figure out exactly how they work and how they interact with the game. So we have a very quick rules rundown on how everything works in the game of Pandemic.
Some might say breakout.
You can cut around that.
Breakout.
At some point you are going to have to do us
Oh yeah!
an intro.